Okay, welcome to today's EdTechify Your Teaching for Read and Write session. If you were unable to make the session in person, this is the webinar recording of this. So some things may be just quite a little bit different based on not being in person. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to email me those questions and I will be quick to respond to them. So what is our goal for today's session? We're going to learn how to utilize the Read and Write program and the toolbar successfully to assist both you and your students in your everyday activities. So talking about that, there is a difference between the actual extension, that's this purple puzzle piece, and the PC version, which is this one that would be installed on a desktop. So we're going to get started today with our EdTechify Your Teaching. And I want to kind of get a little background of where everyone is at with their skills. If you've never used Read and Write before, welcome. I hope that you can learn something from this and find ways to incorporate it with your students. So getting into this, the first thing that we're going to do is use a site called Mentimeter to kind of quickly poll and see how you feel. So there's different ways you can do this with your students as well as have them click on the link, which I'm going to provide here in a second, scan a QR code with a device. Do you have iPads or they have their phones? Or they can go to the site menti.com and type in a code. Sometimes it's easier just to share this link and it's going to take you directly to the questions. So here we go. So I want to kind of gauge what part of Read and Write do you want to learn most about today? Like I said, it depends on where you are at. So maybe you want to learn more about the PC version and you've already played with the Chrome kind of version with the Chromebooks. So I'm going to say, let's try and learn about the PC version. And what questions do you have before we begin? So you might say, I've never used this before. You might say, how do I scan a paper copy of a test and make it readable for my students so they can read on their Chromebook? And that may be your question today. And we're gonna learn some of those things as well. So you submit those questions, and then if we were in live in person, I would show you the results, and we would go from there to decide what direction our session is going to go. So I'll look at those results later on for our webinar session and see where we go from there. So looking at this hyperdoc that I've created for today's session, I want to walk you through the steps to be able to go back to this presentation and review some of these things. So I want to engage everyone first and find out that there's more than just text-to-speech for Read and Write. Think about this question as you watch this video. What if every child used this every day? Even accommodation or not accommodation, how could it benefit all of our students that we have? So I'm going to play the video. I'm going to try and hold my microphone up to the speaker so hopefully you can hear it, and we'll go from there.
Google Apps for Education are everywhere. You might well be using them in your own school, along with millions of other students and teachers. Google Apps are great, but what about students who need a little extra help? Working with documents and the web can be a challenge for struggling readers and writers, English language learners, and students with learning disabilities like dyslexia. Now there's an answer to help every student get the most from Google. Take a look. Read and Write for Google Chrome is this friendly toolbar that installs neatly in your Chrome web browser. So it plays nicely with all these classroom devices, PCs, Macs, and Chromebooks too. It's there whenever it's needed, making it easier for students to work with Google Docs and other documents like PDFs or EPUBs. It also works with web pages. Okay, let's see how easy it is to use. Highlight any passage of text and hear it read out loud. You can pick different voices and adjust reading speed to suit any listener. Speech to text accurately transcribes your students' words as they talk. It's ideal for capturing thoughts on the fly, especially for people who find typing tricky. Word prediction helps reluctant writers, offering word suggestions as you type. There's a talking dictionary, picture dictionary, and fact finder that make research faster, easier, and more fun. And there's a translator for other languages, such as French and Spanish. These colored highlighters are really useful for collecting and summarizing key information. Just pick out key points and gather them together in a new document. Why not try Read and Write for Google Chrome today? It's already being used by millions of students worldwide, and you can install it free at the Chrome Web Store.
Okay. If you were unable to hear that video, once again, I apologize. You can follow along with this presentation in your Google Classroom. If you're a member of my Tech Integration Classroom, this was shared through there as well. So you can view this presentation from there. So hopefully you got some ideas of how your students could use this more than just having text to speech for them. There's other options. So we're going to explore the Read and Write program and the Google Chrome version next. Get yourself ready. Why might you want to use Read and Write? So we're looking into that. Lots of links are provided on this slide for you to refer back to after this. So if you would like to learn more about Read and Write or review, you can click here. This will take you to the Text Help Training Center. Text Help is the company that owns Read and Write. You can go in there and go to courses, and you can choose what type of course you want to use. Read and Write for the iPad, Read and Write for Android, Google Chrome, Mac, or Windows. And then there's also a program called Fluency Tutor, which you can actually try out. It's part of the extension toolbar, and I'll cover that in a moment as well. So there's lots of different things. These courses are not extensive. So when you click on it and you sign in, and actually I'm already signed in, you see that here it's going to cover these tasks. It will give you a pre-quiz to see where you are. You can watch a video. You can watch the video on their YouTube channel, practice some exercises, and do a quiz. After you finish the course, to help you review, you'll earn a badge. So similar to my webinar recordings that I have, you will get a badge that shows that you've completed the session, and you can add it to your collection to share on your website or just for you to have personally. So for each one, the PC and the Chrome version, there's the quick reference guide that will show you what the icons mean. It will show you what the toolbars look like, and you can print those out for you or your students if you need to. They do have a YouTube playlist, so if you're a visual and auditory learner, you can go into their playlist and watch these very short tutorial videos to help you walk through some of those things you might need to look at again. There's the training course, again, that we were just in. And then if you want to go into more detail with the Read and Write version for your PC or desktop, there's a training guide. So it actually is a 140-page document that goes into the whole aspect of every single one of the tools offered, which, as you can see up here on the top, is my PC version that I have open right now. So we're going to move on from exploring. I have some sample documents that you can click on and try the Read and Write extension out on later on. But first, I want to take you and show you, going back to the question of how do I scan something and how do I make it readable for my students? So let's just pretend we're going to go on a little trip. The teacher comes to you and you're an intervention specialist, and they say, I need to have this read to my student that's on an accommodation this afternoon, and we're doing this testing class. Can you do this for me? You might say, whoa, okay. Well, our goal is to show everyone how to do this, so that way it will make life easier in the future. So let's say you walk down to the copy machine and you put it in the copy machine, the paper copy, scan it and email it to yourself. If you're unsure how to do that, please let me know, and I would be more than happy to show you. Take 5 minutes or less of your time. From there, you're going to get an email that has scan and it has a whole bunch of letters and numbers, okay? You do not need to click on it to open it unless you want to see it again. Otherwise, what you're going to do from your email is right-click, save the link as, and save it to somewhere on your computer. So maybe you want to save it to your desktop. Maybe you want to save it to a P drive and have a separate folder of scanned documents. You decide how it's best going to be organized for you. I'm just going to save it to my desktop and say save. So there it is, saving to my desktop. Okay, done. Now, next step. I'm going to go onto my desktop computer, double click on Read and Write to open it up, and you're going to see a toolbar pop up. Now your toolbar probably is going to be in the middle of the screen. So you can just click on this blue part and drag it up to the top, and it will automatically fill up the whole top of your screen now. So it will be at the top. Now, the next step, you see all the icons that are here that go along with those reference guides. I can click the purple puzzle piece and it will scroll me through the different toolbars. Writing Features toolbar, Research Features toolbar, My Features toolbar, and these little arrows show me that there is more that is offered. It just doesn't fit on the screen. Study Skills Features toolbar, and then All Features again. So here I am back to, there's the All Features, and I'm going to actually go to the Reading Features one. That's where I want to start. So once I'm in the Reading Features toolbar, there's a picture of a scanner that's there. And you're going to click on the little arrow next to that scanner, and you're going to make sure it says Scan to PDF. We want to turn this paper copy into a PDF. And we want to change it from where it was here to say Scan from File. So Scan from File, turn it into a PDF. Okay, once you make those settings, it should remember them when you close out a Read and Write or open it back up. So you shouldn't have to do that every time. So now that I've got that set, I'm going to click on the scanner icon. And it's going to say, okay, what do you want to scan today? What do you want to make readable? So I'm going to choose that board minutes off my desktop. And this is a 17-page document, so it's going to then prompt me and say, do you want to scan all 17 pages? You could adjust it if you only want to do page 1 to 3, you could. For the sake of this presentation, though, I'm going to scan them all. After it says scanning, it's going to say, where do you want to save the scanned readable copy to? So once again, maybe I made a separate folder, but I need to distinguish between the original board minutes and one that is scanned. So I'm going to call this one Scanned Board Minutes, or some teachers maybe put an S in front of it. So whatever works for you to remember. Okay. Now it's going to go through the process. You're actually not laying this paper copy onto a scanner like we used to do with Kurzweil. This is actually doing it all within the computer, and it says OCR. So what it's doing is it's taking that paper copy and changing the typewritten text on it to optical character recognition, meaning that it's something that the computer can read. Now, it's not going to be perfect, as we know, but at least through this process of scanning, the students will be able to click and listen to it read. If I would have just taken that original board minutes from my email and posted it to Google Classroom for my students, it would not read it correctly. And you would say, what am I doing wrong? Why isn't it reading this for my students? You have to scan it through the Read and Write program first. Once it's done scanning, it will open it up in the Read and Write version here. So I'm going to actually show you these toolbars in one of the next steps. So for right now, I'm just going to close this out and go back to my Google Chrome browser. All right. So the next step after you scan it is take your scan and put it into your Google Drive. It makes the most sense because you want to have it probably for the following year if that teacher is using that test again at some point, or for the next semester. So 2 ways you can put it into your drive. Either drag it and drop it into your drive, or go to New and say File Upload. And I'm going to choose the scanned version only. Open. Okay, now it's in my drive. Okay, how do I get it to the students is the next step. So I'm going to open up my Google Classroom. Now, if you don't have a Google Classroom and you only have a small number of students, you can actually right-click on this and say Share, and you would be able to type in students that you would want to share with. Now, the only thing you would want to do is say Can View, because you don't want all the students to be able to edit or type or highlight on the same as your original. So say Can View, and that will prompt them to make their own digital copy of it. So let's go to the version of Google Classroom, though. I feel like many of us are at that point. So we're going to go into Classroom. We're going to create a new assignment. You're going to decide, do you want to assign it to one or more classes? Then you're going to decide, do you want to assign it to all students, or do you just want to assign it to the few that may need the test read to them? So you decide that now. That's a new feature that they just added. Give it a title. Read and write sample, instructions, due date, yes or no. You can put in the time, date, topic. It's a great thing to add if you want to be able to search your topics quickly. You can do that as well. All right, now before you go over to that Assign tab, kind of work your way down this assignment, down and over each step. And then now we're going to add it from our drive. It came up at the beginning because I just uploaded it, but if you did it 3 days ago, it might not show under recent. So you might have to search by typing it or search your drive. So here's the Scanboard minutes. I'm going to add it. Now, before you click Assign again, work your way over. You don't want the students to just view it. Let's say you have all students, so that's maybe 100 kids. Make a copy for each student. That way, if they're typing and highlighting and adding voice notes to this PDF, you want to have a copy of each student's work. So make a copy for each student, and then you can decide, do you want to assign it now? Or if you are a teacher that likes to get ready in advance, you can schedule it to show up maybe next Tuesday at 8 in the morning if you want to, and schedule it for that point. So then you don't have to worry about it next week. But let's say this is for this afternoon. You would say assign. And then now we're going to pretend we're like in the student mode. So I've assigned this now as a teacher. If you have any questions about this, please let me know and I'd be happy to review it with you. Now the kids are going to go in and open their assignment and they're going to click on this scanned copy. Now theirs is not going to automatically load up this open with. It's going to be a black screen with these 3 dots. They have to click those 3 dots, and for them, it's going to say under the 3 dots, open in new window. So it's going to open a new tab for them again of this document, and then it's going to give them this option of open with. Open with, we're using Read and Write for Chrome. Now, here's where some people get confused. It's opening up a new tab. You have the extension up here for Chrome. I can click it, it can open up and load up on a page. Okay, that's the extension. Just whatever you turn on, you turn off. Whenever you open a PDF with Read and Write or an EPUB document, this is your toolbar. So you have no reason to click this extension one to use that. So here's our options. We have click to speak, prediction, play, stop. This is going to be our study skills menu. Notice our highlights are grayed out right now. We haven't highlighted anything yet, so you can't use those. Our text tool, our annotations, which lets you put little push pin with comments, printing tool, vocabulary lookup is not highlighted because we haven't highlighted any words yet, and then our settings. So let's go into settings first. For some students, they may want to choose the voice, and then they can choose the speed. So some students want to make sure that they have it read fast. Maybe they're very good with auditory. Some maybe need the comprehension a little bit better, so they can make it slow or very slow. I'm going to leave it at medium. You also have these other options here. Some kids are learning keyboard shortcuts. So that way it makes, especially for those that have accommodations, if they can learn these shortcuts, it will save them time in class than having to click, and go to different things. If this is going to be helpful for their whole education career, it might be beneficial for them to learn those shortcuts. So we're going to just leave them as is, click the gear again to hide it, and let's do the click to speak. So anywhere I click in this document, it's going to read it to me.
The following members were present: MR Chris Getz, MRS Christina Lewis, MRS Laura Meeing, Dr. Kim.
All right, I'm going to stop it for the moment. Now, hopefully you could hear that. It said MR Chris gets, MRS. So it didn't read Mr. and Mrs. because they're abbreviations. So the kids just have to know that, it's a computer, it doesn't have a brain. So, well, it does technically, but not a real brain. So they want to make sure that they recognize those things are not always going to be exact. So you notice this red here tells me that I have click to speak still on. So if I was to click somewhere else, it would start reading again. The square will stop it. So to turn off click to speak, I would go there. Now let's say you want to have kids type on it. So we're going to go to the typewriter tool. They can type, or for some of those kids that may have a difficult time typing, they can use the speech input option. My name is Mrs. Danhoff. And most likely this is not working for me right now because I am using my microphone to record this webinar. So it won't let me do both at the same time. Now, student Chromebooks do have the microphone built right into the top by the webcam. You probably don't have to use a headset like I'm using right now with the little microphone. It should pick up their voice just fine. They can have it read back to them.
MRS Danhoff.
And then once they're done typing or speaking, whatever it is they want to say, they need to click the green check mark. If they don't click the green check mark, it's not going to save what they typed. So now I have it there. I can move this anywhere. So maybe I want to put it down here. They can double click on it to edit again, which is fantastic. So kind of gives you a little bit more option than Doc Hub. So I'm going to click that check mark again. Now let's move into this feature. So let's go back and do typing, but we're going to do prediction. Notice when I started typing today, it automatically, with the predictor tool, gave me 10 options.
Today.
And it will speak it for me. I can click on it to put it right into my PDF document. Now, for kids, this might be really helpful. And it says what probably is going to come next after today. Today there, today it, today is. And I might say today is, I was going to type Monday. So here's Monday. So they don't have to know how to spell it. It will speak the word to them. So this is fantastic. When you're done using prediction, click it to turn it off and click the green check mark to save. Move it wherever you want and boom, you're done. Okay, so we've got the play button. We've got the stop button. You can also, let me turn the text tool off. I can highlight text and hit play and do it that way as well. Now, when I highlighted text this time, it brought up my toolbar. So let me just actually highlight one word, approve. I can look it up in the dictionary and have it read to me. What does approve mean? So I can click it.
Verb. If you approve of something or someone, use
okay.
Verb.
And it will read what it is. I can do a web search and it will open up a new tab of what approve means, or it could be something that's in the document. I can translate it into a different language, French or Spanish. I can do a picture dictionary option. So students that are younger and need symbols to help them remember things, approve, especially this check mark or thumbs up would be a good one. And you can always use these pictures as well later on. So picture dictionary, and then you have your highlighter tools. So maybe I'm going to highlight approve in blue. I'm going to highlight minutes in pink. Maybe you're having your kids search a document for main idea and details, and they have to go in and they have to be able to identify the different features. Now, notice when I highlighted things now, I have this option to collect my highlights. So I'm going to say collect all those highlights. I can give it a name. So I'm going to say sample highlights. Maybe you want it to be called something that your students will know. I can sort them by color, or I can sort it by position in the document. So let's say you want to sort by color because you told students, I want you to find all the main ideas in green. I want you to find the details that support them in blue. I want you to find any vocabulary you don't know in pink. So you can turn off and on what colors to highlight depending on what you want them to turn in at the end of class, and then say okay. Now, once you collect those highlights, it's going to make a new Google Doc, and it says open in Google Doc here. Opens a new tab. Here's the title of my document. Here's what I highlighted. Here's the name of it. And then it will provide you with the link to that document so you can say, okay, what was the original that we were doing? When students use this feature on a website, it will cite the document website so that way they can always go back to it and look at it again. Now, students could share this. They could upload it back into Google Drive. They could upload it into a Google form. If that was part of an assessment that you gave them, there's lots of options for this. So it's really cool. If I want to sweep the highlights, clear them out, and it takes them all away, and we're done. All right, let me highlight another word again. And let me do this one. Okay, so we did the text tool already, typewriter annotations. We can do annotations like this, so we'll put a push pin, and maybe you as the teacher are going to write back to them, great job, give them feedback, what they need to work on, and say okay. So that way when you click the X, the little push pin is what they can see, like, oh, my teacher typed something. They can just click that little hover over that push pin and push it, and they can see your feedback and comments within the PDF. So kind of like the comments feature in a Google Doc. This one here, vocabulary lookup. So we're going to take those colored highlights that we did and give it a moment to load. Open them up in a Google Doc. It's going to provide you with a vocabulary list. So this is so cool. If you have your students find words they don't know before reading, and you say, all right, let's look at these vocab you don't know before we start looking and dissecting closer at this reading. It will make a vocabulary list that includes the word, the meaning, the symbol, and the notes. Okay, so they can add their own notes in there. You could have a type of sentence, whatever feature you want to make them so they remember it. It gives the link back to that document too, which is great. So they can rename it if they need. Now, you notice when I went into a Google Doc now, it gives me a little purple puzzle piece that's hanging underneath my web toolbars up here. So this puzzle piece is the one students and you would use if you are within a Google Doc. I know I'm in a doc because here's that blue icon. And if I click to open this, you notice I have a lot of the same toolbar features, but they're a little bit different. So this is the read and write for Google Chrome toolbar. I don't have to click on the extension at all. The extension you're only really going to use if you're on a web page and want students to be able to read it. So let's take a look now at using the Google Docs one. So I'll walk you through the steps of this one as well. So we have our prediction again. So if I was to start typing the education, I could select my next one. And same thing, anything you turn on, you have to turn off. The little blue line went away. I have the dictionary. So if I highlight the word education, oops, let's try that again. I can look it up, play it.
Education.
I can hit whatever definition I want. It tells me if it's a noun, adjective, whatever it is. I have the symbol, which here's already the symbol it gave me in my vocabulary list. I can hit play.
Education.
The different thing with this one is you notice you have a pause button where back at this one, you only had play and stop. So here's my pause button. If I want to do continuous reading, I could hit play.
The United States Federal Department.
I hit pause. It stops and is highlighted right on that word. Hit pause again.
That administers all federal programs.
Keep reading until I hit stop, and then it will clear back again. Now, this tool you did not see in the PDF toolbar. It's a screenshot reader. So if I take this, and it's going to read If there's like an image you take when you are at a museum and it's got text underneath it, it will read the text that is on the picture that you took. I can use it just like this as well. And it's going to read that text, but that's not the ideal way that you would use a screenshot reader. It's more for images text on an image. Sorry about that. You have the option to make speech. So once again, I'm using my headset for the session recording, so it's not going to let me speak into and make a speech document of this. So if students wouldn't have the availability to have read and write, you could record yourself reading this. It would take much longer, of course, on your part. Or you can have kids record reading if you want to as well, to hear how they're doing. We have the fact finder again that will open up a new tab in Google. This one is called screen masking. So wherever I move my cursor, it kind of grays out for those kids that need to focus in, and lets them follow along as they read a little bit better here. So that way they can kind of keep their focus and task. We have the speech input again. So speech input lets you kind of like voice typing. Today is Monday. And of course, like I said, it's not going to let me use my microphone again, but this is the same tool they would use under tools and do for voice typing. So you have two ways to get there, either from there or tools, voice typing. Translator again, highlighters, clear your highlights, collect your highlights. And then here's this vocabulary builder that we just used after highlighting text. You have to highlight text first, because otherwise, notice that they both gray out when I erased all my highlights. So you've got that. And then these are really cool. These are two extra things. So the voice notes are similar to this annotation over here, but with voice notes, it allows you to record up to a minute. So maybe you have those students that are younger or students that are not quite fluent with their reading, and you want to leave them feedback, but you know they are not going to be able to read what you wrote to them. You can insert up to a 1 minute voice note, and you can do as many voice notes as you want though. So if you can't get everything said in 1 minute, you can make multiple ones. And it will put them off to the side like a little comment for those kids to be able to click on and hear what your feedback is for them. Now, this last feature was just added recently. I think this is fantastic for students at younger ages that are learning to read, all the way up to high school if they're getting ready to present and learn how to do speeches. They can practice reading, let's say, even up to high school. They have their presentation typed up, their speech, their opinion that they want to present to the class. You might say, in order to prepare for your speech in class or your recording, do this practice reading aloud. So they would click this. And this is part of the Fluency Tutor app. We couldn't find any text to read aloud. Okay, I have to highlight it first. Let's do that. Okay, now let's do that one. You got to highlight your text first. So they would have to highlight what it is they want to read. They would then hit start recording, and they will practice recording as many times as they need out loud, getting some audio and oral speaking practice. Once they're done recording it, they can send it directly to you as the teacher. So let's say you assigned your kids to do speeches, they've got them done, but you're not presenting until next week in class, and you want to preview what they're going to sound like in front of the class. You can have them read those speeches and then share them with you this way through that toolbar. So it's a really cool way to help kids practice and prepare for those bigger projects. So same thing with this toolbar. Anything you turn on, turn off. So it just hides it up in here like that. Lots of things that I just covered with that. So there's a lot there. Okay, so let's go back to the PDF one more time, and you have that printing option as well. Notice that in Google Docs, of course, you don't have a print option here because they can print right within Google Doc. Most of the time, you probably won't need them to print anything because they can access it online, or you can access it online from what they shared with you. Questions? If you have a help question, there is a help toolbar there, and then here are your settings that you can change. So up to 10 things for prediction. Language you can change. what you want. Features, you can turn them off and on. Right now we have them all set to on so students can explore with those a little bit more detail. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my presentation now. These are some of the sample documents that we've had. So let's say this was something a teacher actually in our district has scanned in through the copy machine. Then they ran it through the PDF, the Read and Write PC program to turn it into a PDF. And they shared this then into their Google Classroom for students. Students would open it with Read and Write. And then boom, after it loads, you can make sure that students can do the click to speak option anywhere and it will begin reading. And it's thinking over here, so give it an option to load. There we go. Perfect. So that's an option of a paper copy that was scanned in for students to use. I'm going to close out of that one. This is a scanned math assignment. So we have students with accommodations that need everything read. They don't always have the option. Teachers do to pull and work with them directly. So here is all of his math workbook. He can then go in and open with Read and Write, and he is able to do his math homework on his laptop or Chromebook or desktop at home and have the material read to him while he's also inputting the answers on there as well. So one of the things that might come up is how do you do like multiple choice options? Some teachers make it so that way, I don't think there's any on here that I can find right now, but they would just use the highlighter tool to highlight the correct answer and use like a specific color to show that they have the correct answer there. So that's a sample of worksheets that for students that need that accommodation as well. Here is a Google Doc, which similar to the Google toolbar I showed you there. This is a hyperdoc that was created about Martin Luther King Jr. Notice right away, my Read and Write toolbar pops down there for students to be able to open up and begin using. So if I click in front of Martin Luther King and hit play, it will start reading to them right from that point. So I've got that option within Google. And then here is a Google form. So this is awesome as well. So say you're creating your assessments in Google Forms this year, it will read a Google form, but notice you're going to say, well, where's the little toolbar? Well, a Google form is a link on a website. So now that brings me to my third option of use the extension now. Here's that toolbar. Very similar to the one I showed you in Docs. There's one extra spot in here, though, that wasn't in the toolbar I showed you in Docs, and it's called Simplify Page. And that will take any web page, and this one, of course, won't work. But if I took a web page with a lot of text, and I need to make it more simplified for my students so they're not reading a 10-page document, it will simplify it and still keep the main idea of the article. So that's an extra part added to this. But let's say you want to have this read to students for their Google form. Same thing again. They can click or they can highlight the text in the Google form and hit play.
Use the image below to find the difference between the high and low temperature for the day.
So you have all these options. Click to turn it off and it hides that toolbar. Click to turn it on and there it is again. So that is kind of in a nutshell the extension, the Google Doc, and the PDF version with Read and Write. Assigning something and having kids maybe annotate it. So maybe they went in and annotated this and they added their name to it and did all kinds of things to it, but you want to now view their assignment. Okay, so we're going to get back to the part where we want students to turn in something through the PDF version of Read and Write. So let's say those students made and did some annotating, and they typed and they highlighted on a PDF. Now, as the teacher then, you will go into that assignment, of course, just by clicking on it. And what happens is when you assign something and you said make a copy of that PDF for each student, you're going to see each student in your class come up with a little preview of that attachment, so that board minutes would come up here. Now, this is where a couple of teachers have gotten worried, and I want to clarify how this works then. So for you, in order to grade their assignments and see it, you have to click on their PDF that they have changed and added things to. And what happens is teachers would click on that PDF and they would see this, and they would say, I see the original document. I don't see where the kids type their name. I don't see where the kids are putting in any kind of highlighting at all. And they said, it didn't work. They didn't click the green check mark to save it. Well, they probably did. What you'll need to do as the teacher then is click on that student. So I'm going to pretend I clicked on one of the students' PDFs. You have to also open it with Read and Write in order to view any highlighting, any text, any annotations that they may have made within that document. And then you can also push pin back things, like I said, comments, and look at here. Here is my things that I had put into that document. So if you notice here, I don't see any of that. When I say open with Read and Write, I now see all the things that I saved with my text and annotations. So just keep that little tidbit in mind as you are assigning work to students or grading it. All right. So finishing up our session here, we want to apply this. So just as kind of for you to think about along the way, and if you do get a chance, send this to me so that way we can kind of work together. Think about how you could introduce this to students. If you feel more comfortable having me come into your class and kind of team teach with you to get them started on how to use Read and Write, I'd be more than happy to do a lesson with them. Or if you feel confident and comfortable doing it on your own, you may also do that. But you first have to show the students kind of those toolbars so that way they can explore and use them every day then. Think about what activities you already do that would be appropriate to do digitally now. So instead of doing paper and pencil, which is absolutely fine to do depending on what the assignment is, just think of how you could modify and change some of your assignments that you're doing. What skills are the students learning to become more independent? So especially for those students with accommodations, want to make sure that they are getting that practice that's going to help them in the long run, so that way they know what to do in the future. And think of the possibilities of you being able to work individually or in small groups with students now while they are completing tasks on their own. So instead of monopolizing your time to read a test to one student all the time, now they could do it with the computer. That gives you time to go and help other students and that student in a small group. So try it out. You can do this. If you forgot how to do any of those steps I just walked through in this session, you can read through here, extend your thinking. And if you forgot how to do any of that, there are embedded in this presentation some video tutorials of how to do each of these steps. So how to scan from the copy machine, how to assign it into Google Classroom, and then how to view and grade the student responses from Read and Write. And then think about this. Think about the tools and resources available with Read and Write. Think of any moments that you went, I could use this with this. Please feel free to share out with others what's working for you, what's not, so we can all help each other learn. Okay, and wrapping up with our session today, please do make sure you fill out the evaluation of this webinar recording. It will help guide our next sessions that are offered, as well as help maybe in the layout or change of how we present these things. After the evaluation is complete, you will receive your webinar badge after you complete that, and you can be proud that you have learned all about Read and Write and are a confident user. So many thanks for today. You'll receive a picture. Here's a little badge that you're going to get after completing today's session. And I appreciate you taking the time to view. If you have any questions, like I said, please don't hesitate to email. Have a great day.